My dear, I looked her in the eyes and showed her the kind of love she'll never taste. I told her, your body may be his now, but his soul never left me. Her silence screamed when I whispered, he says your name, but dreams of mine. I told her, he doesn't kiss you, he escapes through you. She flinched when I said, you were just the break before he came home to me. I said, you'll spend your life being his pause. I was always his poetry. She shook when I smiled and said, he never even looked at you like he looked at me. I told her, he never called you home. He only got lost in you. I said, you're not the woman of his dreams, just his distraction. She'll never forget the moment I said, even his guilt smells like me. Her mouth trembled when I said, he kissed you trying to erase me. I said, he held you like a man missing someone. Me. Her breath caught when I said, you're his proof that Pun makes bad choices. I whispered, you were the bruise he hid me behind. I told her, you're not his lover, you're his shame. She wept when I said, he doesn't laugh with you, he hides. I said, you're his way of pretending he's healed. I whispered, he stays with you so he doesn't have to face what he lost. She broke when I said, he only chose you because I left. I told her, you weren't his first mistake, but you're his loudest. She froze when I said, I am his past, his peace, and his pain. You're just his present. I whispered, you're a temporary shelter. I was his storm and his sunrise. I said, he touches you gently because he remembers breaking me. She trembled when I said, you wear the crown of his cowardice. I told her, he keeps you because he knows you won't leave, unlike me. I said, I was his truth. You are his escape. She gasped when I said, you're the echo after he lost the song. I told her, you're not in his prayers. I am. She blinked hard when I said, you're who he settled for. I'm who he still searches for. I whispered, you'll always be second, even in his arms. She folded when I said, he talks about me in silence. I said, you'll never know how much of me still breathes inside him. She cried when I said, even your love can't erase my fingerprints. I whispered, he doesn't love you. He's trying to love me less. I said, you didn't win. You were just available. She whispered, I know, before I said a word. I told her, you carry his regret. I carry his truth. She looked away when I said, he gets drunk to forget I'm sober. I whispered, even your kisses can't quiet the sound of my name. I said, he sleeps beside you, but he wakes up missing me. She sank when I said, you're who he hides behind, not who he runs to. I told her, he lied to you gently. He broke me honestly. I said, he needed someone soft to forget the fire. She flinched when I said, you're the band-aid he ripped off me with. I whispered, you'll always wonder if he loved someone more. He did. I said, you were never a choice. You were a consequence. She cried when I said, you'll never know the version of him I got. I told her, he only found you because he lost me. She stared at the floor when I said, he made you his comfort, not his compass. I whispered, he kissed you like a man drowning in guilt, not desire. I said, you carry his fear, I carried his future. She froze when I said, he calls you love, but I was his awakening. I told her, he doesn't need you, he's hiding in you. I said, you're not what he prayed for, you're what he punished himself with. She faded when I said, even when he's with you, I haunt his silence. I whispered, you were the distraction, I was the devotion. I told her, he doesn't speak of me, but he never stops feeling me. She shook when I said, he didn't leave me for you, he left himself. I said, he keeps you close, hoping I'll fade. I won't. She cried when I said, even his happiness looks forced without me. I whispered, he doesn't love you. He just doesn't know how to be alone. I told her, you wear his lies, I wore his love. I said, he chose silence with me over a life with you. She paused when I said, you gave him your body, I gave him his soul. I whispered, he buried me to build you, but I became a ghost he can't shake. I told her, he avoids my name but remembers my voice. She cracked when I said, you're holding the man I healed. I said, you're the stranger he knows. I was the home he feared. She stared blankly when I said, even in your arms, he's remembering mine. I whispered, you replaced my absence, not my presence. I told her, you have his attention, I had his surrender. I said, he'll call you perfect, but he called me real. She broke down when I said, you're the safety net after his fall from grace. I whispered, he'll kiss your forehead, but he kissed my wounds. I said, you'll grow old next to him, never knowing he never outgrew me. She sighed when I said, he stopped loving me, but never unlearned it.